We're going to move on to Right to Censor. And this is probably the other thing that we got the most questions on. So many. First one's from me. Were you bummed to have to cut your hair?
Yeah, I think, but I was because it was just to me like right now I still have it, so it kind of like something I always liked. But it was not a standout thing, another shock thing that got me attention. So cutting it wasn't so much of a big deal, but knowing that this might not be a long-term thing at the beginning of it was was the worry. And that's where I think one of the people I looked at one of the questions they asked about Jacob Israel, who's actually the main writer for Right to Censor.
Mhm.
And he's the one, along with me, turned it from a 3 week political agenda push to becoming a cult. He was the one that really turned a dark corner on that. And that's why it became what it was.
So I don't know who Jacob Israel is. So he was a writer with WWF at the
He
time,
was a
was he?
writer, WWE. He has,
Yeah.
has a YouTube channel as well under his name. So you can check that out.
So I'm going to go back a bit then. So quite a few months before Right to Censor comes out, is it the Parent Television Council with L.
Mhm.
Brent Bozell. Now these guys start getting involved with WWF Affairs when SmackDown comes out around August of 1999. So nearly a year before Right to Censor, and you get to WWF around that same time. Do you, as just talent, realize just how powerful this lobby group is? And do you see these changes having to be made within the WWF to sort of like placate these guys?
No, I didn't even know what they were until Vince brought me in the office, said, and this is one of the few times he's talked to me, said, this is what we're going to do. I want you to do your homework. I want you to join this group and see what they do. And that's your homework to do that. But when he said that, like I knew they were trying to take away advertisers. I knew the company was in a little bit of trouble trying to navigate that. But I also knew that we needed to do something different to make it have more lasting power. And that's where Jacob came in and said, man, I could see so many battles of good and evil and trying to do this stuff. And he goes, and Jacob and I actually believe that the product needed to be, for the sake of the talent, needed to be kind of taken away a little bit because the guys were constantly hurt. And doing the Right to Censor protected the health and well-being of a lot of people without getting heat on the company for peeling back from that.
When did you realize this was going to have legs beyond the 3 weeks?
When Godfather, when we got Godfather, I thought that was a big deal. And then Val, obviously, and now he can just reform anybody and turn them heel in the group.
First
And
time,
getting Ivory, getting a woman meant a lot too.
do you know, I was going to say she was great.
Mm-hmm.
Ivory was, with all due respect, I have to say Ivory was the best thing about that group, man. She was so good as an interview.
I saw a second stage of Right to Censor, and it was never done before in wrestling, if you think about it, to have a female leader of the group. I wanted her to be the leader after a while. Because how much heat would it be like people back then? Who are you to tell me what to do, you bitch, and blah, blah. Yeah, it would have been a lot of heat. I was smart enough to know a business that after a certain time, I didn't want to jump the shark. And also, I'm still part of the group. You give it a fresh coat of paint. Now we got another year that we can milk this.
Yeah. Now, just what I said there, it sounds terribly disrespectful of me to say. No, I do believe that between you and Ivory, equally, as two mouthpieces who are so... did Vince know that you could talk?
Someone probably had to tell him I could talk from ECW, but I don't know. But I don't take offense to it. I don't take it personally. Ivory,
I just think she was I loved Ivory in that. I thought she was wonderful. And man, she was one of the best in WrestleMania 17. Everyone says the greatest WrestleMania of all time, or most people, or a lot of people do. And her and Chyna, that match, it wasn't about the match, but it was about the journey to it. I think that was one of the biggest selling points of the pay-per-view that people don't really give enough credit for.
Oh, we had tons of heat. We got rid of Spike Piledriver and everything, Chyna, and ripped up the Playboy. We had a whole entire Rumble to Mania for those two girls, the run that the group and her had. That was, you're right. It shouldn't have been such a squash in my mind, but I can see why they did it after all the heat we got on her.
First time hearing...
about WrestleMania 17.
Oh.
Hutch tells great stories, but this is a nice little story, and I feel bad for the McMahons. You know, they had the big tower things where WrestleMania X7, the set had...
Yeah.
Well, it was too high. So they had to cut off or take the bottom out. So it took out like 2 letters out of WrestleMania and X7 out of the stage. So when they shot it, they had to shoot above it and crop it out because they literally had to remove part of the set because it was too high in the dome. And I remember Shane being so bummed. He was like, this sucks.
I still say that's the greatest WrestleMania. I love that show from top to bottom. And it's not like one of those ones where, they have to keep like filling it with like legends from the past to try and bump a pay-per-view buy rate. No, this was all people in the company in 2001, and just everyone knew their role and were great at it.
I miss that Attitude Era not because it was Crash TV or any of that stuff, is because it was people seemed to have a lateral push from each other. There's no hierarchy. Like you said, every angle, every week. Sometimes X-Pac will fight Steve Austin for the title. Sometimes X-Pac he'd be fighting Gangrel, and there was just such an interchange of talent across the board.
I'll give you one. Kurt Angle and Bubba Ray Dudley, they had a really good title match on SmackDown. I remember that distinctly at the time, thinking it was great. I've got more Right to Censor questions. When was the first time you were presented with the theme music as it was?
Weren't presented. We just went out there and they played it. There was no rehearsal. I don't think they wanted to play it until they had to play it.
So you never had like a meeting with Jim Johnson or anything like that, saying what kind of tone would you like the alarm?
4 beeps before I need that. No, Jim, Jesus, what are you doing? How long have you been doing this? Give me that keyboard. Let me do it.
This is a great question I've got to ask. Dark Caverns says, my question is, when you were the leader of Right to Censor, whose idea was it to wear white socks?
I had no black socks. I just wore my gym shorts.
Oh, so total accident.
Total accident, but Dutch will tell you, and I'm sure everybody else, that's when the best stuff happens.
Did you have any call or sway of who would join the group, or was it just like, this guy's joining the group this week, deal with it?
No, I had no say in anything that we did outside of they would give me something, then I would go to Jacob and we would do what we would do to make it make sense.
Godfather and Venus have both said, man, they hated the group. It's not because of you or they hated having their characters stripped away from them. Even though Val Venus was a bad guy anyway, he'd sort of like left the porn star thing in the back, but he hated wearing shirts because he apparently would sweat brutally. Did either of those, or even Paul Buchanan, did they complain about the characters? Or
yeah, but I look at those two characters in what they were. I look more as the fact as baby faces, both those guys made tons of money in merchandise. Action figures, video games, T-shirts, gold chains, whatever it is, towels. I don't know how much merch they had, but as a baby face turning into a heel where you have no merchandise, your money gets cut dramatically. So that's what I think, and Val wearing he wore all white. Imagine how hard that is to keep clean.
Yeah, especially when you're washing your own gear on the road as well. This is very interesting. Sir Solid as Snake, in the age of modern cancel culture, do you believe that Right to Censor would have been even more over as heels today? And I'll add this, would they be baby faces today?
Oh, that's a tough question. Ivory came out for the Rumble, I heard, and I heard she got a pretty good reaction when the music hit.
I didn't see it.
She was in the last Royal Rumble.
I did see it. I don't remember.
Ivory came out.
Oh,
as the Censor Ivory, yeah.
I watched it and I don't remember it. Okay, well apparently it's over now. It's a baby face.
She did get a positive reaction, but I don't know where it would fit today with cancel culture. Obviously, people think we won the PG era war, and that's good. Keeps my name out there to some degree. I did an indie show once where I wrestled Anthony Green, who was a great indie talent who was in NXT as August Gray or something like that. Well, I came out as Right to Censor Stevie. I told everybody that, there's children in the audience, all this stuff, and you got me to thank for the PG era that you're watching today. They started booing. Anthony Green has a fanny pack, pulls out a Snickers, and he goes, you get a little sensory when you're hungry. I ate it, and I was like, what the hell am I wearing? What the hell am I doing? And I ran to the back, and I had my BWO stuff underneath. BWO music hits, I come out and then wrestle. It was a fun time.